Week 2 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire this week. The first receiver, Quinton Johnston, Los Angeles Chargers. Quinton Johnston coming off the best game of his NFL career. 5 catches, 51 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 6 targets. I know it's the Carolina Panthers, but Johnston right now, he's number 1-2 receiver, whichever way you want to spin it, for this Los Angeles Charger team. Available 94% of fantasy leagues. I know week 3 is a tough matchup at the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's getting targets. He's playing with Justin Herbert, even though we saw Herbert get shaken up and go to the medical tent, and we'll see the practice reports this week on him. But right now, receiver with a lot of injuries. St. Brown banged up, Jefferson banged up, even though he said he's most likely going to play. We know Puka Nacua last week got hurt. He's going to be out multiple weeks. Also, Cooper Kupp in a walking boot. I doubt he's going to play for the next week or two. So with a lot of receivers banged up, and the waiver wire this week has some decent options. Quinton Johnston, number 1 option and former first-round pick last season for this Los Angeles Charger team. Someone I definitely would try to get off the wire this week. Available in 94% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver, Andrei Iosivas of the Cincinnati Bengals. Iosivas, 2 catches, 7 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 4 targets. A big target in the red zone for the Cincinnati Bengal team. We know T. Higgins is out, and we'll see if he comes back from the hamstring injury next week. And this Bengal team already 0-2 once again this season. Week 1, Iosivas, he didn't do much. 3 catches, 26 yards. And then week 2, like I said, the 2 catches with the 2 touchdowns. But like I said, they like him over there, it looks like, in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, he's always looking for new targets. He's a quarterback that spreads the football out. And Iosivas available in 93% of fantasy leagues. So even in 3 wide receiver sets, I believe he's going to play. I know Burton is there as well. And they got a deep receiving core as the Cincinnati Bengal team. So even if T. Higgins comes back, Iosivas after this ball game is someone I definitely would try to go out there in deeper leagues and get on my roster, because 2 touchdowns is 2 touchdowns. I know it's fluky a little bit on the 2 catches, but they like targeting him in the red zone, and he made plays. The next receiver, Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts, 2 weeks in a row. 2 good ball games for Alec Pierce. Week 1 versus Houston, 3 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. And then week 2 with the Packers, 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. So the only thing is Josh Downs, I believe, is going to come back next week. He was close to playing in this week's ball game versus the Green Bay Packers. And week 3, it's a decent matchup versus Chicago Bears, where their defense has had some trouble in the early going. Alec Pierce last week, I had him as a hot waiver wire ad. This week, once again, he went out there and had a good ball game. So even if Josh Downs returns, I don't think Alec Pierce is going to just go right to the bench. I think it will still be in 3 receiver sets. And if anyone's going to go to the bench, I believe it's going to be Adonai Mitchell. So far in the first 2 weeks of the season, Mitchell hasn't done much, and Alec Pierce has gone out there and made plays and has the trust of Anthony Richardson. I would give him an ad this week, available in 72% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver is Demarcus Robinson of the Los Angeles Rams. So like I mentioned early in the video, Cooper Kupp in a walking boot. Puka Nacua, we know he's out with the leg injury. And Robinson now could be the number 1 wide receiver, especially if Kupp is going to be out. He only had 2 catches, 50 yards. And this was a throw-it-out type of ball game for the Los Angeles Rams. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 2 touchdowns in the first 8 minutes of the ball game, and that pretty much was it. The Cardinals didn't look back, and it was just tough sledding the whole way for this Los Angeles Ram team. So Demarcus Robinson, worst case, he's the number 2 receiver if Kupp plays. But I believe Cooper Kupp isn't going to play for this Los Angeles Ram team and bounce back. So right now, you could get a number 1 wide receiver for this Ram team, available in 58% of fantasy leagues. And we know he has a good rapport, and last season showed good flashes with this Ram team. I would give Robinson an ad this week. The next ad is his teammate Jordan Whittington of the Los Angeles Rams. So Whittington, he was a surprise and a late round pick, making the team after he had a nice preseason, and he got some action. 2 catches, 22 yards in the week 2 blowout loss at the Arizona Cardinals. So Whittington, like I said, in the preseason looked good. He could line up anywhere in the slot on the outside, and Sean McVay has spoken highly of Whittington. So now with the injuries in this lineup, Tyler Johnson, he really didn't do much. Cooper Kupp, like I said, I believe he's going to be out a few weeks. Puka Nacua, he's most likely out another 5 or 6 weeks for this Los Angeles Ram team. Next man up, and Whittington, he's a better receiver overall, I believe, than Tutu Atwell, and someone who could play the X and Z positions in this Ram offense. So Whittington, I know he didn't have a good game, but now with the injury to Cooper Kupp, they're going to need a versatile receiver who could play all the positions. Like I said, is this Los Angeles Ram team. And if you want to beat people to the waiver wire, Whittington is someone I would definitely give an ad to this week, available in 98% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver is Jeudy of the Cleveland Browns. So far in the early going, Jeudy's looked solid for this Brown team. I know this Brown team, it's been ugly. The first game, they didn't look good at all. Week 2, they squeaked it out at the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Jeudy, double-digit fantasy points, and he found the end zone the first game of the season versus the Cowboys. 3 catches, 25 yards, a touchdown on 8 targets. And week 2 at Jacksonville, 5 catches in that one for 73 yards on 6 targets. So Jeudy, it just wasn't working out for him over there in Denver. He was a highly touted pick early in the first round, going over a CeeDee Lamb in that NFL draft that season. And now with the Cleveland Browns, at least so far, he's looked decent. In week 3, he's got a pretty decent matchup versus the New York Giants, where they really can't stop anyone so far in the early going. So Jeudy, if you want to take a flyer on him, he's available in 59% of fantasy leagues. I know his ceiling isn't high, but at least he's going out there and putting up some decent numbers. Next receiver, Jalen Nailor of the Minnesota Vikings. 2 weeks in a row, he's found the end zone as Jalen Nailor. Jordan Addison, he was out in the week 2 ball game versus the 49ers. We don't know how long he's going to be out, but Jalen Nailor, worst case, is going to be in there in 3 receiver sets. And him and Sam Darnold obviously have a good rapport, working some second-team snaps in training camp before J. McCarthy went down. So they got chemistry, Darnold and Nailor. And in week 1 at the Giants, like I said, a catch, 21 yards, a touchdown. And week 2 versus the Niners, 3 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. So in the early going, Nailor's got a knack for the end zone, available 99% of fantasy leagues. In the worst case, if Addison does return, he'll be the number 3 receiver. And like we said, Jefferson said he's going to play, but we'll see what happens as well when the practice reports come out this week. And the final receiver I looked at off the wall is Josh Reynolds of the Denver Broncos. Josh Reynolds, this veteran receiver, he's been bouncing around the league over the last few seasons, but he always finds a way to have some fantasy value as Reynolds, available 99% of fantasy leagues as well. In the first 2 weeks, he's gone out there and had some decent performances. Week 1 at Seattle, 5 catches, 45 yards. And week 2 versus the Steelers, a great game, 4 catches, 93 yards on 5 targets. So this Bronco team, they're not any good. They're going to be trailing a majority of the season. Week 3, another matchup where they're going to be trailing early and often, I believe, at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With Josh Reynolds, he's going to be in there 2-3 receiver set. Portland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Villanueva's on the roster as well, but he missed week 2's ball game with injury. And Josh Reynolds, he's a solid veteran that could go out there, run the routes, and make plays, and he's good for a young quarterback like Bo Nix. So in deeper leagues, if you're looking for a wideout with some decent upside, I think Josh Reynolds can help fantasy owners. And like I said, available 99% of fantasy leagues. That's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire for week 3 of the fantasy football season.